4 rings, a legendary trio that literally changed how basketball is played. For a decade, the Golden State Warriors weren't just a team, they were a dynasty. But crowns get heavy, legends get old, and right now, it feels like the walls are starting to crumble. So the real question isn't if it's over, it's, did it already end and we all just missed it?
And look, don't just take my word for it. Those words, they come from the heart of the dynasty himself, Steph Curry. He's calling this the last ride, invoking Michael Jordan and the '98 Bulls. But when you actually look closer, you realize it's not the same situation. Not even close.
Yeah, the comparison is, well, it's jarring. The '98 Bulls were the defending champs, the undisputed kings of the league. The Warriors? They just limped out of the second round after a pretty mediocre season. Their betting odds make them a massive long shot. So this isn't some glorious victory lap. This is a desperate scramble just to stay relevant. Which brings us to the one huge, unavoidable question. The clock is ticking on Steph Curry's legacy, right? So, is the very same front office that built this incredible dynasty now the one thing that's tearing it down? Are they completely squandering his last chance at a 5th ring?
To find the answer, we have to start at the flashpoint, the single issue that has paralyzed the entire franchise this offseason, the contract standoff with Jonathan Kuminga. One word. That's all it took for NBA insider Mark J. Spears to sum up the Warriors' entire offseason. Frustration. While every other contender is out there reloading, the Warriors are just frozen. They can't make any moves until this one domino falls. It's not just a negotiation, it's a bottleneck holding the whole franchise hostage.
It's basically a high-stakes game of chicken. The Warriors offered a deal that gives them total control and flexibility to trade him. Kuminga, of course, wants long-term guaranteed money for security. But then there's this nuclear option looming over everything. He could take a tiny 1-year deal, get the power to veto any trade, and then just walk away for nothing next year. It's a complete nightmare scenario for Golden State.
And this is pretty much how the fans see it. Kuminga is leveraging the team's desperation against them. It's a power play where the only real loser is that ticking clock on Steph Curry's prime.
But here's the thing. This whole Kuminga situation isn't happening in a vacuum. It forces you to ask the real question. Is this just a one-off problem, or is it the latest symptom of a much bigger disease in the front office? When you lay it all out on a timeline, a really troubling pattern starts to emerge. From drafting a project like James Wiseman when they needed immediate help, to giving Jordan Poole that huge payday and then trading him a year later, to benching and then losing a locker room anchor like Kevon Looney, it just looks like a series of mismanaging assets at the absolute worst possible time.
And this is the human cost of those decisions. That's Kevon Looney, a 3-time champion, just sharing his raw frustration after being benched in a playoff matchup he was perfect for. That feeling of being disrespected, it's what ultimately led to him leaving, creating a massive hole right in the middle of their defense.
And here's the devastating irony. The small ball cheat code that made the Warriors so revolutionary, it's now their most glaring weakness. With Looney gone, they're just getting bullied by the bigger, stronger teams that are dominating the league. Their greatest innovation has become their biggest liability. But hold on. Before we convict the front office, every investigation has to hear the other side of the story. Are these really just unforced errors, or is something else going on here? Let's start with the defense's Exhibit A. 4 championships. That right there is a legacy that most franchises can only dream about. And that legacy was expensive. The ownership has paid over $1 billion in luxury tax to keep this team at the top. You can't call that neglect. That's an absolutely unprecedented commitment to winning. And you can't say they're sitting on their hands right now. The trade for Jimmy Butler was a huge win-now swing. You hear Moses Moody saying it. Just having Jimmy on the court makes life easier for everyone. They are actively trying to get Steph that 5th ring.
So maybe this isn't really a failure at all. Maybe this is just reality. I mean, no team wins forever. Father Time is still undefeated. And the NBA's new rules are literally designed to break up expensive teams like the Warriors. Perhaps this isn't a collapse, but just the natural, unavoidable end to an incredible era.
So, if it's not simply a case of front office malpractice,
What's the real issue here? Well, if you look at the data, you'll see a fundamental shift in how championship teams are actually built in today's NBA.
Right now, there are basically two ways to win a title. You've got the stars model, go all in on a guy like Jokic or Luka and fill in the gaps, or you have the depth model, like the 2024 Celtics, where you build a balanced roster that's just loaded from top to bottom. The Warriors' problem? They're caught somewhere in between.
And this is where it gets absolutely crazy. The data shows something that seems impossible. Having an elite, top-tier, fifth-best player on your team is actually more impactful for winning than having the single best #1 player in the entire league. Just let that sink in.
As one analyst put it, the smartest bet you can make now is on depth. In today's league, a truly balanced elite roster is the new blueprint for a championship. The age of the super team might be giving way to the age of the super team. All of this leaves the Warriors in an almost impossible spot. They don't really have a top 5 player anymore, and they don't have that elite depth. They're stuck between two philosophies with maybe one last desperate shot to get it right.
So if the current path isn't working and this standoff drags on, what are the options? How do you salvage this final window? Well, some people are proposing something that was once completely unthinkable.
In one speculative but pretty fascinating trade proposal, the Warriors do the unthinkable. They trade franchise icon Draymond Green along with Kuminga to their rival Lakers. In return, they'd get younger, versatile players to retool around Steph and Butler. It would be a seismic shift, ending one era in the hopes of extending another, even for just a year or two.
And in the end, that's what this all comes down to. You can blame the front office, you can blame league trends, but the Warriors are really battling the one opponent no team has ever beaten: time. They gave us a decade of pure brilliance, but nostalgia can't outrun the clock. The last ride is here, and for the first time in a long, long time, no one knows where this road is going to end.